How can you improve the patient experience in your practice so you can start generating more revenue? In this video, I'll share 3 ways to do just that. Hi, it's Jason Parkinson from ONEFIRE. One of the most frustrating points of a patient's interaction with a healthcare practice is the dreaded phone call. Whether they're calling in to schedule an appointment or ask questions about a procedure or payment, this can be a very time-consuming process. For some patients, this initial step is what keeps them from calling and booking an appointment to begin with. The good news is that there are so many ways to improve the patient experience when it comes to communicating with your office. Even better, it can be a welcomed upgrade for the team that's working in your office too. So let's dive into some of the ways that you can bring your communication channels up to speed. Let's jump down here to my iPad to talk about some of the frustrations that patients have with healthcare practices. One of the big ones happens to be something simple. It's your business hours. Patients get frustrated if business hours aren't convenient to them. If the only time they can reach your practice is during these predetermined hours of when you're open, it's not going to fit into your patient's lifestyle, and you're likely leaving opportunity on the table to be able to reach patients. Another frustration that patients seem to have is the hold time. And not just the hold time, but the routing of a patient throughout an organization. Now, if you have a small practice, this may not be an issue for you, but in larger organizations, think large healthcare practices, when people call in, they feel like they're going to be waiting on hold. They feel like they're going to have to explain their situation to multiple people as they get passed off through some type of call tree or manual transfer process. All of that leads to friction in a patient's experience with a healthcare practice. A third thing that I see oftentimes is this idea of the online experience. So if a patient fills out an online contact form and isn't sure when they're going to hear back from your practice, that's a problem. Is it going to be a day? Is it going to be a week? Why isn't it right now when I have a need? So all of these frustrations lead to these fears that a lot of patients have, which is basically this. Is it even worth my trouble? And this thought right here is what's resulting in lower than desired patient volume in your practice. When you've got patients that are like, well, if I have to do all this rigmarole to try and get in touch with the practice to get my need addressed, you're going to end up in patients that are just going a different route altogether. Now, let's think about what a patient actually wants from not just a healthcare practice, but any experience. This is a time in life where people are accustomed to getting things immediately, especially if you're trying to attract a Gen Z or millennial type patient. Really, anybody under the age of 45 at this point is really interested in making sure that they're heard immediately, and picking up the phone is not the way to do that. So wants that patients have, think about this. How do I get my questions answered now? We're talking about immediate answering of questions. If I've got a question or a concern, or I've got a minute out of my day where I'm researching something, I want the answer right now. How do you do that for me as a healthcare practice? How about this? They want an easy way to schedule. I'll draw my little calendar icon here. So what's the easy way that I can get scheduled for an appointment, for a consultation, even scheduling a phone call so that I don't have to worry about trying to do that over the phone or over email or any of those other communication channels? I want to be able to just come to your website. I want to be able to get scheduled right away. It's super important right now. If I can schedule Chipotle to be picked up in 15 minutes, why can't I schedule an appointment online at a specific healthcare practice for an elective procedure or for a consultation? And then the other thing is this, it's my channels. I want to make sure that I can communicate in the channels I want to be in. I don't want to be, beholden to your needs of being able to get on the phone with you. I want to be able to use text. I want to be able to use email. I want to do the things that make sense for me and my busy lifestyle. And I want you to figure it out as a healthcare provider to be able to interact with me in those channels. So all of that leads to a result, which is the desired result. It's where you're headed as a healthcare practice and what you should want. The patient wants reduced friction. Okay? And for you as a practice, you want more patients, right? And so what ends up happening here, if we take a look at this on a little bit of a different scale, if you end up being a practice that struggles with only being able to have communication during your business hours, you've got extended hold times or call trees or call centers or complicated ways for people to communicate with you over the phone. And then if your online experience is lacking and you can't schedule online, you can't get your questions answered right away, all of those different things, it leads this downward trajectory of people thinking, is it even worth the trouble? Now, alternately, if you're looking at growing your patient volume, you want more patients, you want to be able to improve that patient experience and remove the friction, that means you have to be able to answer patients' questions now. You have to be able to allow them to schedule things on their own time and in their own way. And you need to be able to talk to them in their own channels. So all of those different things play into creating an experience that has reduced friction for your potential patients and ultimately more patients. It's that up and to the right trajectory that everybody's after. So I told you I'd share 3 specific things that you can do, and that's where we're headed here, right? The first thing that I think is pretty simple and kind of a no-brainer is online scheduling. Now, what do I mean by this? I don't mean a complicated system that has to connect into your EMR, okay? I'm not talking about getting IT involved and all of the rigmarole that goes with that. What I'm talking about is make it easy for a new patient to schedule a time to talk with your practice. If you're just doing this for existing patients and they have to have some kind of an account or they have to be already an established patient, that defeats the purpose of being able to attract new patients into your practice. So put together an online scheduling system or use something that is HIPAA compliant but doesn't necessarily have to be plugged right into your EMR so that someone could schedule a consultation or schedule a phone call. And you can even set it up so that you have to confirm that time. It's not something that they can just pick and expect to get the call. Maybe they pick the time and then, your practice follows up with a text or an email to confirm the time and actually lock it in. But online scheduling is huge, and you're missing a huge opportunity if you don't have this little thing put in place in your practice already. The second thing to think about is modernizing your communication. So what do I mean by this? I'm talking about not just a phone call from your practice front desk to a patient. I'm talking about texting, I'm talking about email, I'm talking about live chat, any of the modern ways that people want to engage with a practice. That's the way that you should be able to be available and be talking with them. And understanding the complexities around HIPAA compliance and those other things within those channels. But you can implement programs today where you can do that texting, you can do that live chat, and you can really be a resource for those potential patients to get their questions answered and ultimately get on your schedule so that you can start generating revenue from them. The third thing is a knowledge base. So a knowledge base, you've probably seen this before. This is like a location for frequently asked questions, right? This is where somebody can go and get anything answered that they may potentially have a question about. You're the experts. You've been in your practice for a long time now. You understand what questions patients oftentimes have. It's important to put that into an area on your website that's easily accessible and allows for people to get their questions answered right away. And more importantly, allows them to do these things after hours. So if we look at these things that I've outlined here, online scheduling, this is an after hours thing, right? It doesn't have to work just during your business hours. Modernizing communication. We know that the phones may only be answered during your business hours, but texting, email, live chat, these types of things can be put in play so that they do happen after hours. And a knowledge base is that other thing that enables people to be able to get their questions answered at any time, not just during your normal business hours. These are the types of things that can remove friction in your practice and ultimately start to lead to an increased patient volume for all of your procedures and services. So, where are you at in your journey? Is there friction in your patient journey that's prohibiting you from growing your practice today? Do you have a consistent pipeline from your website of inquiries, consultations, and appointments, or are you trying to attract more? Let me know your thoughts in the comments here, and my team and I will be sure to respond. And also, we've got a free 45-minute strategy session just for healthcare practices that'll help get you aligned on the next steps in your practice. I'll put the link to scheduling that right in the link in the comment section here also. Have a great day. I've got another video coming up for you next week.